All right, Claire, thank you so much. Welcome back. We are sticking with our Helene coverage and looking at insurance services after hurricanes and other disasters. We are joined today by Eddie Nunez with Alliance Insurance Services. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And don't forget, you can continue to send in your questions to the number at the bottom of your screen. Well, with the Helene disaster on the top of our minds, who needs flood insurance?
So the obvious question here is the immediate reaction is everyone after the catastrophic event that we saw. Obviously, it's very personal, so you have to understand, your flood risk. Yeah. If you're in a floodplain, obviously that becomes a higher risk, and just really understanding. I would suggest everyone to at least just have a conversation to understand, the cost versus the benefit of having flood insurance in place, and also just their risk profile with the potential for flood.
Sure, absolutely. And how much does flood insurance add on to a typical policy?
So flood insurance is typically a separate policy altogether. You have the NFIP program, which is the National Flood Insurance Program, and then you have also private markets. The NFIP program, typically I would ballpark that anywhere from $1,200 to $1,400 for the year, but obviously it depends on a lot of different factors, where you live and what your flood risk is. On the private market, there's a little bit more different criteria, also because there are higher coverage amounts you can purchase on the private market, so that also plays a factor.
And I want to ask, how busy have you guys been since this happened?
Yeah, obviously, luckily our agencies are located out in the foothills, so we didn't have such an exposure there, but definitely a lot of windstorm claims, falling trees, things of that nature. But we were fortunate not to see it as much.
And trees is usually a really big thing. We've talked to a lot of tree companies who say that, those trees fall so quickly when these storms come through.
Absolutely, absolutely. Trees always play a big exposure, especially if you're in a more wooded area. Where we see a lot of, when it's on your property, it's easy to kind of resolve. I sometimes see scenarios where it's a neighbor's tree that falls on the property, where there can be a little bit of confusion on whose responsibility it is. Insurance does cover the unexpected. A tree falling on somebody's property, that wasn't your fault, it wasn't your neighbor's fault. So the insurance companies are aware of that, and your insurance policy would respond in that scenario, even if it was on your neighbor's property. And the vice versa is true as well.
Okay, and we're just about to get into that as well. How common does that type of situation happen, and is it usually obviously with homes that are super close to each other?
Yeah, it's always a pretty common occurrence sometimes. Again, like I said, you can rest assured that if you have your home insurance policy in place, you're going to be taken care of, as would your neighbor. Your insurance would respond first. The only sometimes I see things get a little bit fuzzy is when we talk about dead trees, because that is predictable, that tree is going to fall. And that is just document everything. Document that the tree, is in fact, a threat and a potential danger because it is dead, and just document the fact that you made your neighbor aware that the tree has the potential to fall. So documentation is key.
And then if a tree falls on someone's car, are they covered?
Yes, if you have comprehensive coverage. So that's the key. If you have comprehensive coverage, that is going to cover things such as a falling tree, a collision with a deer, theft, fire, things of that nature. Unfortunately, if you just have liability, then that exposure would not be covered.
Okay, and then if someone gets a new roof, will that make their insurance lower?
Yes. So if you replace your roof due to wear and tear use, the roof became of age to have it replaced, that will decrease your insurance. The insurance companies are aware the fact that lowers your risk exposure, so they do give you that credit. However, if you file a claim in order to have the roof replaced, obviously that would probably be a little bit of a wash, because now you have a claim reporting on your loss history.
Okay, and should people make a claim if they lost food during a power outage?
Yeah, you have to read your policy documents and make sure that exposure is covered. I think that's the key. They can cover things such as items like spoilage and stuff of that nature, but you got to make sure it's listed on your policy.
Okay, well, we are going to take a pause right here. Remember, we are talking about insurance services after natural disasters, and so if you have a question, we want to make sure we get it answered here with the experts. So that number is right here at the bottom of your screen.